Welcome back to the Explainer. Today, we're tearing down a tool that has the entire design and developer world buzzing right now. It's called Google Stitch. This is the highly anticipated AI UI tool straight out of Google Labs, and we are going to separate the pure design hype from the grounded reality. Like, is this actually the end of traditional UI design as we know it, or is it just another flashy experiment?
Google is making a massive, bold promise with this one. They literally claim Stitch will help you turn a prompt or sketch into a working UI mockup, then export it as front-end code. Now, if you're a product manager, a developer, or a founder, you know the absolute dread of the blank canvas problem, right? You're staring at an empty screen, trying to wireframe an idea without a design team, and you know it usually takes, 3 meetings just to agree on where a button goes. Stitch is promising to collapse that bottleneck entirely. But does it actually deliver?
To find out, here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. Meet Google Stitch. 2. How it actually works. 3. The good and the bad. 4. Stitch versus the competition. And 5. The final verdict.
All right, let's jump right into section 1. Meet Google Stitch, the AI native design canvas. So what exactly are we dealing with here? Google Stitch is an experimental AI-powered design tool from Google Labs. Instead of sitting there clicking and dragging a bunch of rectangles around on a canvas, you use natural language prompts or even visual references to generate complete UI layouts. And it gives you the front-end HTML and CSS code to go with it. It's powered by Google's Gemini 2.5 models, and the goal here is simple, but honestly kind of revolutionary. You just describe what you want, say a mobile fitness app with a dark theme, and Stitch instantly hands you a testable interface. It completely collapses that massive gap between having a raw idea and actually seeing it on your screen.
Moving right along to section 2, how it actually works, under the hood.
There's a really distinct and fascinating split in how Stitch operates. You actually have 2 completely different modes. Standard mode is powered by Gemini 2.5 Flash. It is incredibly fast and gives you a generous 350 generations a month, which is honestly more than enough to drive any indecisive product manager crazy. But it only accepts text prompts. Crucially, though, it lets you export your generated designs directly into Figma. On the flip side, we have experimental mode. This uses the more powerful Gemini 2.5 Pro model. It lets you upload images like a messy whiteboard sketch, but it caps you at 50 generations a month and completely drops the Figma export feature. So this creates a massive workflow trade-off for you. Do you want the magic of uploading visual sketches, or do you desperately need that Figma export? You kind of have to choose.
Okay, so how do you actually use it day to day? The workflow is surprisingly straightforward. Step 1, you just enter your prompt or reference UI. Step 2, instead of manually pushing pixels around, you iterate and refine using a chat box. You can literally just type, make the buttons rounder, or add a search bar to the header. And then step 3, you export the clean HTML and CSS, or push it over to Figma if you're using standard mode. This whole conversational iteration thing is incredibly fast. A PM or developer can spin up a layout in like 60 to 90 seconds. It entirely shifts the paradigm from pushing pixels to just having a conversation about what you want to build. Which brings us to section 3, the good and the bad, the reality check.
Now, Stitch absolutely shines in a few crucial areas. First off, its speed is just staggering. Taking just 60 to 90 seconds to generate a full screen, that's wild. Plus, it requires absolutely zero design experience. This is a total game changer for solo founders and back-end developers who normally break out in hives the second they open a design tool. The HTML and CSS it spits out is surprisingly clean and really usable as a structural starting point. And honestly, maybe the most impressive technical feat, if you export to Figma, it actually preserves auto layout and nested layers. We're not just talking about dropping a flat JPEG into your workspace, it's a real, fully editable design file. However, we've got to immediately juxtapose those strengths with the grounded reality here. The visual outputs, they are highly generic. You're definitely not getting award-winning, unique, bespoke designs. You're getting standard, safe, and somewhat boring patterns. Also, that highly touted image-to-UI sketch interpretation in experimental mode often completely fails to understand messy handwriting. It basically forces you to use text anyway. Component alignment can be frustratingly inconsistent, colors tend to drift, and complex multi-screen flows break down pretty easily. Plus, as we mentioned earlier, experimental mode blocks that crucial Figma handoff entirely. So if you're senior designer expecting pixel perfection,
These generic outputs and broken flows are going to be deeply, deeply frustrating.
All right, let's zoom out a bit for section 4, Stitch versus the competition and the broader ecosystem. Because look, Stitch certainly does not exist in a vacuum. We've mapped it out here against two other major players, UX Pilot and Mind Studio. So Stitch is built for fast UI generation, mainly for early rough concepts, and has that limited Figma export. UX Pilot, on the other hand, focuses heavily on high-fidelity UI flows. It offers full Figma support across the board and is definitely best for dedicated designers. Meanwhile, Mind Studio tackles back-end logic and AI agents. It focuses on actual app functionality rather than just the front-end visuals. So you can clearly see how Stitch's generalized rapid-fire approach contrasts with tools built for very specific, rigorous product development cycles.
Let's take a closer look at UX Pilot for a second. If you're a professional designer, UX Pilot absolutely pulls ahead for multi-screen flows. Why? Because it uses an AI model trained specifically for UI design, rather than a general-purpose model like Gemini. That means you spend way less time wrestling with prompts and more time refining actually usable designs. It integrates flawlessly with Figma across all of its modes, which makes it a much better alternative if you need connected, high-fidelity prototypes for a big client presentation, rather than just isolated, generic mockups. And then on the totally opposite end of the spectrum, we have Mind Studio handling the back end. While Google Stitch builds the front-end UI, Mind Studio's no-code AI agents can actually power the logic, route the data, and handle all the API integrations behind the scenes. This opens up a really incredible workflow pairing. Imagine this. You could use Stitch to generate the visual front end of a lead capture form in, say, 60 seconds. And then you turn around and use Mind Studio to build the actual working back end to process that data in minutes, all without needing to spin up a massive engineering team. Pretty cool, right?
So that brings us to section 5, the final verdict. Who is this actually for?
Well, before we answer who should use it, let's take a quick look at the price tag. $0. Yep. Because Stitch is currently just a Google Labs experiment, the barrier to entry right now is absolutely free. You get that super generous monthly quota to just log in and test your ideas out without spending a single dime. So the financial risk to trying this out is literally non-existent. So here is our final verdict on the ideal users for this tool. It's for product managers exploring rough concepts, founders who need quick pitch mockups but don't want to hire an agency, developers seeking a structural HTML and CSS starting point, and teams who just need quick visual alignment before jumping into a formal design sprint. Look, it is absolutely not going to replace your senior product designer or a mature design system anytime soon. But as an asset for rapid, early-stage ideation, it is an incredible tool that's going to save you hours of miscommunication. Which leaves us with this final, provocative question to consider. Will you build your next prototype with a prompt or a blank canvas? The gap between having an idea in your head and having a testable interface in your hands is shrinking faster than ever before. I highly encourage you to go experiment with these tools and see how they might permanently alter your daily workflow. Keep learning, keep exploring, and we'll catch you on the next explainer.